Michigan is facing a water crisis. Nestle, the parent company of Ice Mountain and Pure Life bottled water brands, operates 3 well fields in Michigan within the Muskegon River watershed and aquifer. Between 2005 and 2015, Nestle pumped 3.4 billion gallons of water from these wells. This water is pumped, shipped, bottled at its plant in Stanwood, Michigan, distributed, and then most of it is sold in other areas of Michigan and across the Midwest. In 2016, Nestle requested a 60% increase in pumping to 400 gallons per minute from its White Pine Springs well in Osceola Township. 400 gallons per minute is equivalent to an Olympic swimming pool filled with water being pumped out of the ground every day. I decided to get in my car and make the 4-hour trek to Osceola Township and neighboring Evart to assess the situation for myself.
Hi, my name is Rhonda Hoff. I am a former vice president of Michigan Citizens for Water Conservation, which was for 11 years. I'm also a riparian on Chippewa Creek and a former riparian on Twin Creek. So this picture was from 1992, where you can see it's all open into the pond. Here you can't really see, but that was the eagle going down and catching. And this is looking back at our house, and this was all open where all these mud flats are here now.
It was taken on a canoe, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. We were out in the canoe. And then this is from the house, and you can see when mud flats started to form. This one was in 2012. That's the new mud flat over there. And some of how it's gotten worse since 2012 from an aerial view. So this creek used to be a little wider than it is at this point. And you can see it's just barely moving along. It used to more babble, where you could hear the creek at night when you had your windows open, and you can't hear it anymore. It doesn't make any noise anymore. It just slowly moves instead of being a nice babbling creek.
Nestle's plan to increase the amount of water withdrawn to 400 gallons per minute would undo an agreement with environmentalists reached in 2009, limiting the amount of water the company could pump from a well field in Sanctuary Springs, which is also part of the Muskegon River watershed. But how did we get here? Let's go back to the very beginning. Nestle entered the bottled water market in 1992 when it acquired Perrier. Over the next decade, the company would add 73 other bottled water brands. In 2000, Nestle Waters North America launched a search for a Midwest factory location to bottle the Ice Mountain brand of spring water, which was previously pumped near Allentown, Pennsylvania. After finding itself unwelcome by Wisconsin locals, Nestle established itself in Michigan with the promise it would be a good environmental steward and create jobs. Michigan Governor John Engler was on board early, helping award a $9.5 million tax break for the factory. Throughout much of 2001, Mecosta and Osceola counties competed for the factory, which was ultimately built in Stanwood, Mecosta County. Nestle tried to reframe its perceived image as a massive multinational corporation by building a baseball diamond, donating first responder vehicles, bottled water to school, and new township wells.
California, because of the drought conditions in California, they have a water board. So people in the big cities and stuff are limited to how much water they can use. Nestle was limited to a certain amount of water that they could take. And Nestle, last I heard, they exceeded that by about 8 times. Nestle is taking more water than what they're allotted, and nobody's doing anything about it. And I guess a good time. When Nestle first went to Mecosta County, their data they had and convinced our DEQ that they could take 400 gallons a minute out of Sanctuary Spring and not hurt the environment. So why didn't Nestle reduce their 400 gallons a minute appropriately so they could bring back the water? The best question yet is, where was the Department of Environmental Quality? Why didn't they step in? But what happened was the local people started Michigan Citizens for Water Conservation, spent $1 million fighting Nestle for the environment. Well, if Nestle was, so environmentally friendly like they claim to be, why didn't they cut back? And why didn't the DEQ step in? Why do the people have to spend $1 million to protect that environment?
Citizens concerned about the impact of Nestle's pumping on the environment formed Michigan Citizens for Water Conservation, or MCWC, in December of 2000. MCWC filed a lawsuit against Nestle in June 2001, claiming the wells would harm surface waters. They circulated petitions advocating a local vote to determine if it was in the area's best interest to approve the plans. Despite these efforts, the zoning was approved after several public hearings. However, in November of 2003, Mecosta County Judge Lawrence Root concluded the local watershed would be harmed by Nestle's pumping activities. After Judge Root's decision, Nestle began searching for alternative groundwater sources. It settled upon the city of Evart to access Twin Creek, one of the tributaries of the Muskegon River. Since then, Nestle has purchased Evart spring water at the standard municipal rate of $2.30 per 1,000 gallons. Nestle disconnected 2 Evart wells for its own exclusive use. To date, Nestle has bought nearly 1 billion gallons of Evart spring water. In 2014, pollution forced Nestle to shut down one of its Evart wells. And to make up for the lost water, it turned to an older well it owns in neighboring Osceola Township, White Pine Springs Well PW101, located near the headwaters of Chippewa Creek. Since then, this well has supplied more than 45 million gallons, almost 70% of that total volume was pumped in 2015 alone. This brings us to 2016, when Nestle applied for an increase in its pumping rate from well PW101 from 250 to 400 gallons per minute.
Just a brief history. The people in the area here were complaining about such low water, and we knew that Nestle was pumping out of White Pine Spring, or this stream. It gets its beginning from White Pine Spring. So what they pump is going to affect the stream. So anyway, in 2017, John McLean and I came, and what we wanted to do, we went from culvert to culvert, all the way down to the Muskegon River. And we measured from the bottom of the water to the water line. There's a water line that shows a traditional depth of water where the water ran through.
Yes, so you can.
And then we measured from the bottom of the culvert to the top of the water. So we had 17 inches to the top of the water line and 8 inches of water. So we lost 9 inches of water that we know of. But in 2000, the DNR found a multitude of trout and crayfish and other fish species in this creek. And as you see, there's not going to be a 20-inch trout swimming down that 5 or 6 inches of water in here. So, in fact, Nestle is impacting on the flow of water into the creek.
All Nestle needed to increase their pumping was approval of their permit from the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality. The MDEQ uses the Water Withdrawal Assessment tool to understand the impact of proposed water withdrawals on wildlife and the ecosystem. Nestle's increased pumping was shown to adversely impact the ecosystem, and thus the permit was initially rejected. This decision, however, was short-lived. The MDEQ overruled the assessment tool and granted Nestle their request after a site-specific review. Nestle and the MDEQ said the pumping increase won't significantly harm nearby surface waters, since the computer model is designed to be overly conservative. The public wasn't notified of the pumping increase draft approval until September of 2016. Once the news broke, there was an outpouring of public concern. The Michigan Department of Environmental Quality held a commenting period on Nestle's application that was initially kept out of the public eye. Once news of it spread, the MDEQ received more than 80,000 comments, all but roughly 80 of which were in opposition to Nestle's increased water withdrawals. A public hearing on Nestle's application was held in April of 2017. 55 individuals present spoke against Nestle's permit, with only a handful speaking in favor.
John McLean, a longtime area resident of a county next to this area, and I'm familiar with this area, and I'm a lover of the environment and believe in conservation of water.
So I'm here with Mr. John McLean, who is a member of the board of MCWC, Michigan Citizens for Water Conservation, and we're here by this culvert, and you can see there's a meter here that's measuring the water flow, the water height. And I was going to ask you, what is the significance of this site?
The significance of this site is that this is the largest cold water feeder to Chippewa Creek. Okay. It doesn't have a name for it, but it's very important. It's also important in that it's a staff gauge monitoring site, which you can see showing 3 inches down there. I don't know if it's visible at this oblique angle. This does the same function that the elaborate USGS does, but for considerably less money.
Yes.
For considerably less money. That's an electronic system. This is a visual manual system.
With the continued rise in public opposition to Nestle's permit, it seemed that change was on the way and the government would make the right decision. However, in April 2018, despite public outcry, the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality approved Nestle's permit to increase pumping from its White Pine Springs well. This decision is still being challenged by concerned Michigan. In another surprising development, Nestle sold its North American bottled water operations to One Rock Capital Investments for $4.3 billion in February of 2021. This may make it even more difficult to fight the water grab by corporations. The citizens of Osceola County have been battling Nestle tirelessly to protect their water supply and local wildlife. This fight, however, has much larger implications than the ecosystem of White Pine Springs. Nestle and other bottled water companies have plants all over the world. White Pine Springs is a microcosm and an eerie foreshadowing of things to come. Do not underestimate your power as a consumer and a concerned citizen. There are 3 simple yet powerful ways you can protect water as a public right. Use refillable water bottles, voice your concerns to government officials, and raise awareness within your community.